What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. Today I'm going to do Minerva in Standard, and I'm actually going to show two different lists, one with Cairbre and one without it. So I know it's one of those cards that are really high in demand right now, but also expensive, and so I want to give out some options, and then also at the end of the video kind of give some metagame suggestions and going from there. So let's get right into it. I'm also a METAFY coach that has helped numerous players get their results in tops. I actually help with the standard, V premium, and premium formats, and I help you prepare for tournament preparation as well, so that way you get your results that you're looking for and helping out with your goal. I just want to help the community grow, and feel free to book a session with me. And also to help you out more, I also just came out with the book How to Win Card Fight Tournaments, Break Through Your Mental Barrier, and Topping Trading Card Game Tournaments. And so it's available for Kindle, paperback, and also the audiobook will be coming out soon. And it's the #1 new release as well, so I'm excited for you guys to see the content and value from it too and your result. So I'm going to start with the list that doesn't have the Cairbre, and let's start with the winning image with Minerva. So what does Minerva even do as a deck? And it's really a restanding Vanguard. So at the end of the battle that this unit attack, if your opponent's a Vanguard at a grade 3 or greater, you can counterblast 1, soul blast 3, and discard a Genesis card, and then stand this unit, and it gets minus drive check too as well. So what's really cool is that it's just another Vanguard attack that you have drive checks to deal with, so you have more aggression, crits become more scarier, you have chances to see the over trigger more. So it is a fun deck in that perspective, but it also gives multi-attack with certain cards too, so you're gonna get a good number of attacks, and that's why this deck is really one to consider for Keter Sanctuary as well, especially during this metagame here in English. And also it has a couple other abilities that you can really benefit from. So for example, the first one, to continuous skill, if you have grade 3 regalia in the soul, all of your front row gets plus 5k. It's a blanket plus 5k, so any new units that come out during the battle phase will also see that benefit, so you can really take advantage of multi-attack with the rear guards as well, so you get more shield quality out of your opponent's hand and also be able to deal damage. And the third skill, it can come up once in a while too, but it's really cool to stack your deck in a certain way, or really trigger some pieces in your soul during your main phase. So for example, act Soul Blast 1, check the top card of your deck, and you can either soul charge it or just leave it at the top. And so this kind of gives you a way to fill up the soul by emptying certain cards or triggering the cards that can come back during the battle phase or during the main phase in this specific instance. So it's really setting that up for better drive checks and really just go from there. The other grade 3 that we're playing, we are playing the Angelica. So you want to play 4 copies of Angelica. So at the end of this battle, it's a rear guard skill. If you have a Vanguard with Minerva, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets plus 5k until the end of the turn. And then you can put this card into the soul and countercharge. So this is one of your main ways to countercharge in this deck. It's really important, and it also triggers Soul Blasting during the battle phase. And furthermore, it makes the Minerva Vanguard bigger and stronger. So you may not need a booster for the Vanguard column, and you can save your boosters for the rearguard column. And what's really cool is that Angelica is also 13k. So if you don't have any grade 3s in soul just yet, you can still hit a 13k Vanguard. This will go into soul and count as that grade 3, and now your whole front row will get the plus 5k thanks to Minerva's skill. So very impactful. So that's why I would recommend playing 4 copies. And I think it's worth noting, like, what's the card that comes out, and it's the Chamomile. It's the grade 2. You actually play 1 in the right line, and then you play 3 in the main deck. And so when this unit is soul blasted, as long as you have a Vanguard with Minerva, which is your grade 3, you can counterblast 1 and call this to any regard circle. Ideally, you're going to call this to the front row so you can have multi-attack. Notice it's a 10k base, but with the 5k boost, it makes 15k. So you can hit over that 13k mark, and if you have a booster, it actually makes better numbers, that 23k mark that's with an AK booster. So super nice. And then as a Vanguard, when you ride upon it, like basically when you ride to Minerva, you can check the top 5 cards and choose 2 cards from among them and add them into soul, and then shuffle your deck. So this actually helps build up your soul, so you have soul charging in a way, just like Genesis has done in the past with, like, since Limit Break era days, G era, V series, and so on. But what's really nice is the right line does it for you, and really you really don't need a lot of soul charging. So because of the right line, it helps with that, so you can just focus on the other things that make the deck much more better. And the other card that goes with it is the grade 1 right line unit. You also play 3 more copies in the main deck too, so it's very similar. So when this is rode upon by a Genesis Vanguard, you can check the top 5 and again add 2 cards into your soul, so super beneficial. So you'll have, basically with this and the Chamomile, you'll soul charge 4 cards by the time you get to grade 3 turn. And the second one is that when this is card soul blasted, you can actually call this to rearguard and soul charge 1, assuming you do have a Minerva Vanguard too. So this can help peel back the soul if it's soul blasted out, but it's also a booster, so that way you can make those columns a lot easier. And there's a few boosters that I do play that kind of disappear, so having a Melissa really just helps out in that regard. And it doesn't cause a counterblast to revive itself, so that's what's really neat. So you can make an effective column during the battle phase by just using one counterblast too when you soul blast multiple cards thanks to Minerva's skill. Then you want to also play, in this list a little bit different. I guess let's focus with the main card that we've seen in multiple lists. We're playing Drilling Angel. I bumped it down to 3. I feel like with this list you can get away with it, and so when this is placed on rearguard circle, you could put a card, unit card from your drop zone into your soul, and then look at the top 3 cards of your deck and choose up to one with the same card name as the one that was put into soul, and then you can call it basically to rearguard circle. So you potentially soul charge from the drop, which is more important because you can soul charge Melissas, the Camomiles, and then you check the top 3 just in case to call a duplicate copy of those. You may end up with a free body to work with, so that's always beneficial, but most of the time you're gonna put back the Camomiles, the grade 2s back. So, and that's why I felt like I was able to reduce this too, because it's really like if you do see this card and with the way you manage things, it shouldn't be as needed. But you could always bump it up to 4 as well. And so part of the reason that I got bumped down to 3 was to make some room with Cadwalla and a few other cards. So Cadwalla is really an attack extender. So if you got the Youth Break trial deck, you have access to this card. And it's at the end of the battle. This unit attack the Vanguard. You can basically soul blast 1 if you have 4 more units. Retire this unit and then look at the top 3 cards of your deck and then choose up to one grade 2 or greater unit from among them and then reveal it and add it to your hand. And then if you did not reveal a card, you can draw a card. So what does this even mean? So essentially, if you find like a grade 3 Minerva or any of your grade 2 pieces, you can immediately add it to your hand for your follow-up turn. And if you didn't care for any of the cards that you check the top 3, you can just blindly shuffle and just draw 1 card still. You do not miss out at advantage. In fact, because this soul blast and retires, it moves itself out of the way for Chamomile while still getting a card back. So you, in a way, kind of plus that way too. So you'll get an extra attack. This is also one of your main ways that if you're going first, and since you're going to grade 3 first and your opponent's grade 2, you cannot use the restanding skill with Minerva just yet. So there is no other way to really soul blast without Angelica and then also a card like Cadwalla during the battle phase. So that's why Cadwalla can be that other attack extender, so you can at least get 4 attacks with like a Chamomile, for example, and be a little bit aggressive while your opponent's at grade 2 still, and why not take advantage of that too. And the next card that I want to highlight too, real quickly, I guess in the grade 2s, is this one over here. It's the Wisdom of Beginning that cleared the world. So this is the order. I only play 1 copy. So again, this is more of the budget-ish friendly kind of thing. I mean, there's a couple cards that do cost money, but if you don't have the Carbres, this is one of the alternatives you can use, and that's basically Counterblast 1. You can draw 2 cards and then choose 2 cards from your hand and call them to rearguard circle of the grade that is equal or less than to your Vanguard, and then if you did not, you discard them. Most of the time, really, you're just going to use this pot of greed in a sense and then just call 2 bodies, and you actually just generate advantage using a Counterblast. Because we don't play the Cairbre, you're not using that Counterblast. Now you can have more freedom with a card like this too. So that's one way to plus and dig a little bit deeper with your deck too. So that's why I play 1 copy of it. Also with the grade 3, there is the Order Gratias Gradile. So it's basically Persona Ride, and this deck really helps with Persona Ride because again, it's a passive 10k blanket on the rear guards too. So if you're doing multi-attack, they're going to see the plus 10k as well on top of Minerva's plus 5, so they're seeing plus 15k which is making basically a Chamomile 25k easily, and so on. So that's why I feel like if you do have the money for this, then I would recommend getting this, or if you have 1 copy, you could always share with your decks and just be able to take advantage of Persona Ride essentially. And then if again with the Sentinel, if you do not have this, you can play 4 PGs. This is the Elementaria Sanctitude. Again, if you're facing against a Vanguard that has triple drive, it's just free, basically, at that point. You don't really care about soul charging it or anything like that. Your PGs or whatever, they're not really Genesis cards, so they really don't benefit on just soul charging or anything like that. And I guess the last few things are really the grade 1s, and then we'll be wrapping up this list and then go into the next one. So we have Apple Witch Cider. This is a Genesis card. At the end of the battle that this unit boosted, if you have a Vanguard with Minerva, you can actually return this unit to your hand. This is really nice because you can call boosters for free. and not have to worry about losing too much hand advantage while still applying good numbers during your battle phase. And then after that, you can bounce it. And do note that Minerva requires a Genesis card to discard. Not any Keter Sanctuary card would do. So that's why even Cider can bounce back, and it can be the Genesis card that you can discard to, just to make sure you have a solid Minerva restanding turnstile. And also what's cool is that if you put this onto the Guardian Circle, and if your soul has a grade 3 card with Regalia in its name, this gets plus 5k shield, so it becomes 10k shield. So this is really nice. Like, you call this as a booster, it comes back to your hand, and it's a 10k shield that you can reliably just put down and use. And then if you really need to, then you can discard it with Minerva. So that's why I feel like Apple Witch Cider is so important in this deck and playing 4 copies. And the other card that I'm trying out is Painkiller Angel. So it's almost similar to Cadwalla. It really enables Chamomile during the battle phase, because at the end of the battle that this unit boosted, it could be your Vanguard, it can be your Rigor column. You can Soul Blast one and retire this unit and draw a card. So you'll get the advantage back thanks to Painkiller, but it also triggers Chamomile to come back and make another attack. So this is more of a grade 1 variant. You could also call this in the early game behind your Vanguard, just to make it easier or harder for your opponent to even guard those attacks, so that way you can kind of guarantee that 1 to 2 damage by the time you get to grade 3 as well. If you're not calling any other rear guards to like attack aggressively, this card helps in that regard, and then you just like get advantage back. So it's just for free essentially. The Soul Blasting one isn't as bad. It's just like you got to be mindful of it too, but at the same time, it's just something that helps trigger those multi-attacks. The triggers, I think, are pretty self-explanatory. We got 8 crit, you got for the one that is the effect. You got the draws with the effect, and also like the OT. I am playing the Keter Sanctuary one too. The extra drive checks are useful too. If you want to go to the Cray Elemental, that's fine too. If you just want to focus on 200 million columns instead of 1 without the drive checks, that's fine too. The heals, I am just playing the 15k flat. I feel like with decks like Chronojet and a few others, like the other ones don't come up as much because they are not getting crit, for example, or things are not necessarily restanding. So I feel like just having the 15k to rely on is fine too. But you could always do like a 3-1 ratio, depending if you're facing other meta decks that may be like using, like, let's say Eva, for example, where it can get the crit. So if you play the 3-1 ratio or the 2-2 split, you can do that too. Not a big deal. Now into the list that actually has the Cairbre. So most of the deck is very similar. You got the grade 3 order to activate Persona Right. You got Elementaria. If you do have that, again, you could do 4 PGs. A lot of what came out was really Cadwalla and Painkiller and the order. And so as you can see, I bumped up Drilling Angel back to 4, and also now made Rune 4 for Cairbre. So this card is what I was talking about. People, it's hard to get right now. Even in the English, it costs like almost $40 per copy, which seems like a lot. I'm not gonna lie, right? And so what it does is that when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, you can Counterblast, Soul Blast 1, check the top 3, choose 1, and call it to Rearguard if it was a grade 2 or less card. And then if it wasn't, then you put it into your hand. And then shuffle your deck, of course. So essentially what it does is it helps call grade 2 or lower bodies, and then your grade 3 Minervas and Angelicas go to hand, which is really nice because you want Minervas in hand to Persona Right for the following turn, and then Angelica, you can just call it to field if you really need to. So it gives you that option. But furthermore is that it gives that early game potential aggression, because this card really just calls another body for free. Not for free, but it calls another body in the early game without committing too much from hand. And I think that's even more important right now with Chronojet, because Chronojet can have the GG play and then start like being aggressive at grade 1 turn if they open up pretty well. Otherwise, there's still like a grade 2 game that's pretty good for them too. So it's really a way to fight back without losing too much resources. The only thing that I would watch out for this card is the Counterblast usage, because this is really a main phase Counterblast. There's no way to superior call this during the battle phase. And be mindful that with Chamomile, the only way to Soul Blast it out during the battle phase will be Angelica and your Minerva Vanguard. And that's it, actually. There's no Painkillers, there's no Cadwalla to do that. But I feel like it's a pro and cons kind of thing at this point, but I feel like Cairbre might be the right call moving forward, because we have Chronojet in the metagame now in English. Messiah will come out too, so if you can have that early aggression without losing too much commitment, that'll be ideal as well. And I feel like with Minerva too, the best aggression that you get is making sure you have a restanding Vanguard. Because you'll have turns where you kind of have to like pick and choose if you want an extra rearguard attack or the Vanguard to restand essentially, and you would rather have the Vanguard most of the time. Unless you're running out of deck size or something like that. So I think with that being said, that's why Cairbre is still in demand, because it's good for this metagame with Chronojet. And so I would recommend it if you do have the finances, or if you already have the card too. That works out too for those players too. So that's pretty much the deck profile. And I just wanted to share both lists. There's multitudes of ways you can go about it, but most of the core stays the same. And so I really enjoy this deck. One is because I actually played Minerva back in BT14, like Limit Break era basically. So it's been like 10 years, I think, or something crazy like that. So seeing Minerva again, and it's really very similar to the original Minerva skill too. So it's just like really humbling. And I gotta say, like the way that they built with the right line, they did a really good job. Before, you still had to play a lot of cards to help soul charge. Chamomile and Melissa still have the essence of basically extending attacks when they're soul blasted. But now you have more room for other cards that you really don't have to worry about, like soul charging 2 or 3 copies of just cards in general, just to make sure you have enough soul for Minerva. So that's super helpful too. And again, I definitely recommend trying it for yourself at that point. Also, if you haven't heard, I actually just published my first book, How to Win Cardfight Tournaments. And so it's already on Amazon. So if you want to get the ebook or the paperback, it's available too. The audiobook will be coming out soon. For the first week, the ebook will be 99 cents USD, so you can get it really cheap. And then after that, I will bump it up back to like $4.99, so it's still affordable at that point. But really, the book is there to help players really get a chance to start topping, understand success, life principles, develop the self-confidence, what it takes to, you know, really do well in a tournament. And also players that may be struggling with consistent tops. They've topped before, but they can't do it again or reliably. And even with consistent toppers, you know, leaders or readers, so that helps with them just staying sharp, and also maybe sharing to their inner circles or people that they want to help out too. So anything that helps out the community is really what I want for it. So definitely check it out. Love your support and everything like that too. And also, if you want to support the channel, feel free to use the affiliated links with 50 Card Shop, TCG Player, and Trading Card Mint. And again, if you want more one-on-one session and METAFY coaching, you can book a session today. And that way I can help you with your specific needs, and especially with this BCS season already started. And I look forward to your success as well. On to the next one, amigos.